All right, so in the last video, we looked at some of just the basic input fields like just text inputs, text areas, select lists. Now we're going to look at things like switches, range sliders, file uploads, and we're going to also do a little bit of JavaScript and jQuery to initialize stuff and also show you some options because some of this stuff can take options as well. All right, so we're going to start off with a switch. So if we go where it says start here, this is file 34 forms_2.html. And for the switch, I just have a set of divs here. And we're going to add a class of switch. And inside the switch, we put a label. And we don't actually need a for attribute. Inside the label, we're going to say disable and put an input. So this input, it's actually going to be the type of checkbox because HTML doesn't actually have a switch input. So it'll be checkbox, and then we're going to put it to checked like that, okay? And then what we do is put a span underneath and give it a class of lever. Okay, nothing inside, just the span, and then we can put enable. So you have to structure it like this in order for it to work. So let's save, and that gives us a little switch, and we can switch it on and off. So this is something that is common on like mobile apps. Now the checked is what turns it on. If I were to take away checked, it'll be disabled by default, but we can still turn it on. All right. Let's see, so I have disabled switch here. That would just be the same thing, except it wouldn't have checked. Okay, so that's a disabled switch. So now let's take a look at file input. So this is the standard looking HTML file input. And you can see here I just have an input with the type of file. So I have the text input with the type of text underneath, because what Materialize does is it makes it so that when you choose a file, let's say this VS Code setup file, we want this right here, the name of the file, to be put on the text. Okay, so what we need to do is first wrap this div, or wrap this in a div called file-field and also input-field. And I forgot the class. All right, and then this div here, we're going to give a class of button because we want it to look like a materialized button. And down here, this div that's around the text, the input text, we're going to give this a class of file path wrapper. And then the input itself is going to have a class of file path and a type of text. So let's save that, and it should look like this. Now once we choose a file, it gets put onto that line, which looks really nice. I really like the look of Materialize file inputs. All right, I'm just going to reload that to get rid of that file name, and let's move on to the slider. So we have the input type range, which is actually an HTML element, but it looks really cool in Materialize. If we wanted to add a min and a max value, we could say min equals 0, max equals 100. And we need to actually add to the enclosing element the class of range field. Okay, so now when I slide it, you can actually see the number as it pops up, which is really cool. When I let go, it goes away. All right. So next thing we're going to look at is the date picker. Okay, so this is actually going to take some JavaScript. I don't think there's anything we need to really add here aside from the input field class. Yeah, so all you need to do now is go to, right now it's just a text field, right, with an ID of date. So let's go down to our JavaScript and we're going to say init date picker. So we're going to use a little bit of jQuery. It should have a class of date picker, and then we're going to say dot pick a date. Okay, that's the name of the function. Takes in an object of options. Let me just make sure we have that class. Let's see. Date picker. No, we don't. So we just want to add that as a class. Okay, so we'll go back down here, and there's quite a bit of options here. So for instance, we have an option called select months, and this will create a drop down to control the month. Let's say true, and let's actually save that. And if I click, we're going to get something like this. So we have our calendar, basically. We have our months, and then if we click the years, let's see, actually, oh, you know what we can add as an option is select years. And we put this as a number, let's say 15. And now it'll give us up to 15 years of dates. Okay, we can also add the option of today, and if we set that to today, a string of today, let's see what that does. So that's going to give this right here, it's going to say today, and we can just mark it, okay, which is pretty cool. We can also add the clear. Actually, the clear is it's there by default. Do we even need today? We might not even need this. No, we don't need that. Let's see what else. We can close it by clicking outside of it. We can also make it so that it can close when we select a date. See how it doesn't close? Let's go ahead and do that. So we'll add an option here of close on select, and we'll set that to true. So now, oops. So now if I click here and I select the date, it just closes automatically. So you can set that to true or false. It's false by default. All right, so that's the date picker. Now we also have a time picker. So we're going to go up here and let's add a class. Just like we added the date picker class, we're going to add time picker. And then we're going to go down to the JavaScript. And we're going to grab it with jQuery. Okay, and the function we want is just like pick a date, we have pick a time. Okay, that takes in an object, and we can have different options in here. So if we save that, it should work. If I say choose a time, actually it's this one here, and you can see it's at 12. Now I want the default to be the now time, whatever time it is right now. So we can say default and set that to now. And let's save. And now if I go and click on the field, it's going to have the time right now. All right, so some other stuff we can do is we can change it to a 24-hour clock if we want. So if we say 12-hour, and we can set that to false. So now you'll see that it's a 24-hour clock. Okay, but I don't want that, so you could either just get rid of the option or set it to true. You can also change the text. So for instance, the done text. We have the done text. We have the clear text. And we have, oops, we have the cancel text. So that would be, this is the done, the cancel, and the clear. So let's say done, I want it to be go, clear, I don't know, we'll just test it out. We'll just say erase, and then cancel, we'll say leave. So let's save, let's go back, and there we go, erase, leave, go. So you can change that up, but I'm going to just leave it at the default, which was okay. clear. Actually, I don't think we actually need to uppercase it. That's done in the styling. Okay, let's try that. And there we go. All right, we can also do auto close with this. So if we choose a time, it should auto close if we add that option. So let's say auto close true, and we'll choose a time, and it closes automatically. All right, so that's the time picker. The next thing we're going to look at is, let's go back up here. It's going to be the character counter. Okay, so right here where we have this text field, which has a label of post, I want it to count the characters like you would on like Twitter or something, where you can only have whatever it is, 120 characters, and it shows you the amount of characters. So to do that, all we have to do is add to the text field a data length property, and let's say this can only be 20 characters, and we'll save, and let's click in here, and right away it says 0 to 20, and I can start typing. As soon as I get to 20, it turns red. Okay, so that's pretty nice functionality just by adding this right here, this attribute and value. So now let's do the autocomplete. So what I have here is just a text input called fruit. What I'm going to do is add a class to the text input, and I'm going to call it autocomplete. And then we're going to go down to our JavaScript, and from here we want to initialize that. Okay, so to do this, we're going to take the autocomplete class, and we're going to call .autocomplete and pass in an object, and then it's going to take in a data object. Okay, so this is where that we want to put the text for the data. Now this is fruit, so I'm going to say apple, and we just want to set these to null by default. So orange, and I'm just going to copy these down. So we'll say orange, say strawberries, pears, and plums. All right, so we have our data, and we can actually set a limit. So let's set a limit of 20, and I think that's good. Let's save, and let's go down here and let's type in an A, and there we go. So anything that has an A in it in this list will pop up, and obviously you can do like a fetch request to an API and get some data, put it in here, whether it's your own API or an external one, and you can have autocomplete. So if I put a P, it's going to narrow it down to anything with AP. If I put APP, narrows it down to Apple, and if I click Apple, it's going to put that right in. All right, so really nice feature. You can also change the minimum length for the autocomplete to start. So if I say min length, the default is 1, but let's make it 2. So now if I put an A in, well, I guess that doesn't. Min length. Oh, this should be an uppercase L. All right, so if I put A, nothing happens. If I do P, though, it does, okay, because it takes a minimum of 2 to start the autocomplete. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for this video. In the next video, we're going to get into tables as well as media, so embedding images, responsive images, videos, things like that.